I was born and raised in Texas, in Houston, Texas, which has a climate that's as hot as Tunisia, but it's more humid. It's worse climate. Anyway, I left Texas. I was very sure I wanted to go somewhere else. I went to Boston, to Cambridge, Massachusetts, in fact, to study architecture at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which most people refer to as MIT. I graduated from MIT in 1964, and it was just 2 years after President Kennedy created the Peace Corps. The government of Tunisia said, "Can you send us architects? We need architects," because after independence in 1956 from France, many of the architects who were here left and went back to Europe, and Tunisia needed architects. And one day I was at the MIT architecture department. I saw a poster, an advertisement for the Peace Corps in Tunisia, and my first thought was, this is a good idea. I will have much more interesting experience going to Tunisia and working as an architect for Tunisia than staying in US and just sitting in an office with 50 guys, you know, drawing partitions between rooms. So I applied for the Peace Corps. I was accepted. I knew nothing about Tunisia, nothing. So I got a map. I looked and saw that Tunisia is right in the middle of the Mediterranean. It's very close to Italy and France and Spain and Morocco and Algeria and Libya. It's very, very interesting country, and I thought this is where I'm going to go for 2 years and be an architect. What was wonderful coming to Tunisia was I was just out of school, and yet for 2 years I got to design. I was able to design and build buildings that no young architect, I was only 23 years old, no young architect in America would have that opportunity in America. Impossible. I was considered an architecte, urbaniste. I was working for the Ministry of Public Works. I was with the department, they call it CHAT, C-H-A-T, Construction, Habitation, Aménagement du Territoire. And I was in Naboul, working in the province of l'arrondissement of Cap Bon. And as soon as we arrived, there were délégués, officials from the Tunisian governments of all the towns in Cap Bon, Naboul, Dar Shaban, Corba, Libya. They would come to the office and we need this building, we need that building. There was an immense amount of construction that they wanted to do. So for almost 2 years, I sat in my little office in Naboul, which then was a very small town, designing projects, and as fast as I could draw them, we would build them. It was extremely challenging, but it was extraordinary opportunity. I came back to the United States after leaving Tunisia in 1966, went back to MIT to do further studies, to get the master's degree, and then in 1967 I got married. I married my girlfriend, whom I had known since I was a college student. We moved to Washington, D.C., and that's where I have lived since 1967. I helped start a new school of architecture at University of Maryland. They had not had an architecture school, so the architecture school at University of Maryland started in 1968. I taught at Maryland for 38 years. I also started my own firm in 1969, so I spent my career as a practitioner, building projects, designing and building in US, and also in Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, as well as around Washington, Maryland, and Virginia. In 1984, in addition to being an architect and a teacher, I decided I would start writing, and I became a columnist for the Washington Post. And I've been writing a column that's called Shaping the City. And Shaping the City has been published by the Washington Post since 1984. In 2007, I was invited to come talk on a radio broadcast by the National Public Radio Station in Washington, D.C. So since 2007, for 9 years, I've been a kind of radio celebrity in Washington, but talking on this radio talk show about architecture, urbanism, planning, housing, subjects that relate to my own career, my own practice as an architect and my teaching as a professor of architecture. And that has been very satisfying. I no longer have office. I do now just consulting, and I do a lot of consulting for architecture and planning projects, and that finally brings us to 2016, when I was invited to come to University of Tunis Carthage to teach again. So here we are. I'm once again at a university teaching architects.